Hello, everybody. I am so thrilled that you are here to check out the Embodiment Specialist training. Before we dive into all the details, I want to let you know there is a transcription of this video below the video. So if you want to listen, that's awesome. We posted this on YouTube, so you could use captions if you need to use captions. But if you're someone who likes to read the details so that you could soak it in, I'm a reader. I always have to read. I could watch a video, but I really need to read and see things for myself as well. Both of those things are available for you. And then as well, there's just some extra details typed out below. This is not a fancy sales page because I'm not here to sell you on doing this training. I'm here to inform you, to let you know what the training is, what the opportunity is, what will occur in the training, what you'll be able to do with the training and after the training. And I really only want people who really want to be in the training. So there will be zero coercion, zero any of that shitty marketing stuff that we all hate, the false scarcity, the FOMO, any of that stuff. That's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm here for. Also, many of you have known me for many years now, whether you listen to the podcast, or you've done programs or courses or workshops with me, or you're a member of the Embodied Living Center, and you know that I'm not fancy. Like I'm literally sitting here in my bed with my headphones. I'm not even using a professional microphone. I haven't washed my face or done my hair today. And I'm just here to tell you from my heart, because this is how that timing worked and when I felt moved to do so. And that is going to be one of the elements that you really get out of this training, should you and I both decide that this is a fit for you, that you get to be yourself. You can run a business, or you can do a side hustle, like whatever the hell you want to call it, however you want to think of it. Your sacred service in the world, your meaning, your purpose, how it is that you spread and share your light and contribute to collective healing and liberation and help people, does not have to look like this big strategized empire, right? Where you're constantly hustling to make 6 or 7 figures and, all this stuff. Listen, if those are your goals and dreams, great. What you get in the training can also help you do those things. But this training is really going to be much more resonant for people who are a lot more soul-centered and who are inclined towards what I call practical mysticism, who just have so much to give and so much to offer, and who really want to be used as instruments for the divine to really contribute to collective healing and liberation, to be, whether you want to be a force or you want to be a channel for grace and love and compassion and forgiveness and all these things that we clearly need so much more of on the planet right now. So let us dive in to what you can expect in the training, how it works, and all that stuff. I have notes here because I am the queen of tangents. So I'm going to be reading off my notes so I can stay organized. This is a training ultimately for people who want to deepen their own embodied healing and acquire the knowledge, tools, practices, and skill sets to be exquisite leaders and guides for others in the realm of the sacred body and what I've already mentioned I like to affectionately call practical mysticism. I'm calling this an embodiment specialist training because whether you are a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a facilitator, a guide, like whatever the hell you call yourself or want to, there's so many words that apply to what you're going to be able to call yourself after this training. And so I decided to go with specialist because that is the thing that is the most encompassing description of what you'll be when the training is over. You will be a specialist in embodiment. Now, I have been mentoring coaches and business owners since 2013. I've been training people in my Wild Soul Movement methods specifically since 2016, but long before either of those things, I was teaching and training in different industries. I was a personal trainer. I worked for a sales company called Cutco. I literally sold knives and recruited and trained sales reps to sell knives. So you know that saying or that idea or that philosophy that if you have 10,000 hours of practice in something, it makes you a master. So if I have 10,000 hours in anything, it is teaching, training, and facilitating. And so I deeply geek out on putting together teacher and facilitator trainings, the arts of holding space, of ethical facilitation. All of these things are really things that are my zones of genius that I have mastery in, but that I just literally will never get tired of. And it's been my pleasure since 2016 specifically to train teachers, coaches, and facilitators in embodiment practices. And there's just another layer, another level to that is just so deeply satisfying and so fun to work with people as they are, right? Not to try to clone myself, right? Or create, mini me's. I'm not interested in that. I am interested in being a steward for these methodologies and practices that I've had the honor and the privilege in some cases of actually like downloading and stewarding and becoming a creator of, and as well many things that I've also just been trained in over the years that I've been able to synthesize into my body of embodiment work. So someone recently called me an OG of embodiment work, and I just want to be clear that I am nothing of the sort. People have been doing embodiment work for decades and centuries before I was even born. But I get what she meant because in this online space, I was one of the first people doing embodiment work years before it became the relatively commonly popular thing, common and popular thing that it is right now. And here's also just something to expect. I am a Virgo sun sign. I am a Capricorn moon. I got my rising and my north node in Gemini. Again, I love teaching and facilitating, and I'm excellent at it. I am also not as structured and meticulous as some people need things to be. So there is a structure, there is a flow to the training. There will be a training portal where all of your content will be like very clearly and beautifully and easily organized for you. There will be a forum where we'll be able to connect. Everything will be scheduled. There will be calendars, like all of that stuff will be clear. But within the content and within the flow of the training throughout the course of the year, I always leave room for magic. I always leave room for pivots because that's how I function as a practical mystic. Like there's always more stuff coming through. And if it's coming through, whenever it's coming through, I'm going to share it with you all. And so just if you're someone who needs everything to like be neat and tidy and like very like rigorous and meticulous, I might not be the trainer for you because, for example, our monthly practice teaching sessions, when we get to that part of training, they're not going to be planned. We're going to show up and whatever needs to be practiced, whatever needs to come through will come through like in those practice sessions, So this training is going to be a beautiful mix of, structure and content, making sure you get absolutely everything that you need, all the foundational stuff, and even a lot of advanced stuff that you need to become a embodied yourself and well-practiced and well-trained embodiment specialist. And then there is going to be a lot of co-creation as well, because when you show up, with your questions and your input and your lived experiences and all that stuff, that will also frame the training. And that's something that I love to pull out and pull into the training, because something that's very important to me is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things that makes diversity, equity, inclusion work is to be practicing it as we go, right? Is to be building and weaving through who are the people in the training, right? And of course, we'll have guest mentors and things like that to do more on, anti-racism, trauma-informed, creating safe and inclusive spaces and all that stuff. But we really practice this and we do it as we go as well, so that you're not only getting trained in it, but part of your training is having the experience of it, so you know what it looks like. So this is not a training that is just going to be theory and then you're like, shipped out in the world like good luck. Like, for example, a lot of yoga teacher trainings are like that, or a lot of fitness trainings are like that. Like, I can't tell you in my 20s when I was in the fitness industry how many like certifications I got where I basically like studied a textbook, took a test, but then it was like, okay, you memorized all the things, good luck actually applying it. Like this training, one of the things that I've really incorporated into it over the years is a lot of practice, a lot of teaching, a lot of feedback with each other and from me, guidance, tutorials, and stuff like that, to make sure that when this training is over, you've already been practice teaching. You will have already taught at least 10 classes. You'll have already worked with clients if that's something that you want to do. You will have already practiced for like tens, not hundreds, but tens of hours with us in our training groups. So, I mean, you'll just be so ready if that's what you want to do. And that's really important, okay? So, my everyday prayer is personally to be an instrument. For many years, it was to be a force. But last year, I decided I don't want to be a force. God and Goddess, they're the force. I want to be an instrument for God and Goddess's grace, love, healing, compassion, forgiveness, and liberation, which means extra and unexpected things can and will come through and be part of your training without a doubt. Some things obviously just can't be planned, but most of it, I want to say 80% of it, is going to be structured and laid out for you. Okay, so the structure of the training, speaking of which, and what you get is this. You will be training in 2 healing movement methodologies. The first is the Wild Soul Movement method. If you haven't done Wild Soul Movement before, it is a healing movement modality that combines the breath and sensual movement to help you connect to and listen to really trust and learn to really listen to and trust your body, right? All of my embodiment work is about helping women specifically, though it's absolutely applicable for any gender, heal what I call the sacred body wound. And if you want to learn more about what the sacred body wound is, I have a whole podcast episode on that. It is episode number 350, I believe. Or maybe it's episode 354. I'm going to have a list. Don't worry. Look below the video. There will be a link for that, okay? I actually have like 12 podcast episodes that I'm going to recommend you check out. Like some of you already know me, you're already familiar, and you're like, yes, I'm in. Let me do this training. Some of you are going to be like, who is this chick? Let me check her out. And I have all kinds of things for you to check out to see if you feel like this training is going to be right for you or something that you want to apply for. So you're going to get trained in the Wild Soul Movement method, which combines movement, sensual movement, and breath to listen to, connect, and trust the body. We use mantras, which are English mantras that I write. We don't appropriate from other people's cultures. And we use the mantras to reprogram the conscious and the subconscious mind. Those things work together in really beautiful ways. The mantras are also physical expressions. The movement is also a physical expression of the mantras. So mantras are also things that we are inviting into our experience, that we are not just repeating mentally, but we're also really like imbuing and embedding into our cells so they could become who we are, how we live, how we move, and how we function in the world. And then the other movement methodology is erotic body movement. Now, erotic movement is actually the first thing back in 2010 that inspired me, that got me into sensual movement. And so I eventually went the way of Wild Soul Movement, but I took pole dancing classes for years and years. And then finally in 2020, I did a formal erotic movement arts training. And that like erotic movement was really my first segue and intro and love in the sensual movement and in the embodiment space for the most part. I know for a lot of people, it's yoga. For me, it was more sensual and erotic movement. I've also done a lot of yoga over the years. I don't have any yoga teacher training certifications. And actually, I will share with you what's so fascinating about how colonized yoga has become and then mainstream in our culture. In 2013, when I was creating Wild Soul Movement, I felt for a moment like I needed to do a yoga teacher training to even be legit to do embodiment work at all. And I actually did one module of a yoga teacher training. And during that training, I just felt such dissonance. I was like, this is not mine. And I don't actually need this to create what's coming through me, right? And so I did not from then on, yoga was not really my jam. There are some movements, there's some beautiful philosophies that I really respect and appreciate in yoga. Of course, there is some yoga inspiration in Wild Soul Movement, but that is not what we do here. If you have a background in yoga, that's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. But you don't need that in order to teach Wild Soul Movement or erotic body. You also are going to get 3 embodied healing frameworks. You're going to get trained in these. You're going to practice these. You're going to use them yourself. One is actually the embodied healing framework. The second one is my self-liberation framework. And the third one is my embodied self-love framework. And a little later on in this video, I'll explain to you how you will use those things, how these things will work in the training. You'll also get an introduction to energy work and a myriad of tools, practices, skill sets, and rituals to incorporate into your current career or professional offerings. Or even if this is not something that you want to do to earn an income or to make a business, you can, use it in your own life with your own families, your children, community gatherings, volunteer work, community organizing, anything that you do. You'll be able to integrate and incorporate these things into your life and into your world however you want. And I will be absolutely delighted and elated to help you figure out what that looks like for you over the course of the training, which is 13 months, if I didn't already mention that. You also get access to the archived content from my power programs, which I ran in 2019 and 2020. You'll get all of my Wild Soul Movement practice archives from 2014 to 2018. And you also get a year-long membership to the Embodied Living Center. And I give you all of this because developing your own personal practice, doing your own embodied healing and self-liberation work is integral to becoming an embodiment specialist. You need to have access to Wild Soul Movement, erotic body, my healing meditation libraries, rituals, energy hygiene, energetic attunements, and all that stuff so that you can practice it, use it yourself, learn it, and as well be able to use it with your own clients and students and whatever it is that you do, or employees, whatever is, again, your world. You also get a ton of teacher and facilitator specific training. So don't worry. You, again, do not need to have any practice or any experience with teaching movement, energy work, or the healing arts. There are requirements in place in the training to test and evaluate your skills and development as we go so that you can graduate at the end of your 13 months. And then here's the other thing that I've noticed over the years. We can all have the best intentions of you completing your training in that 13 months, and it just might not happen. And in the event that it doesn't happen, you get a whole extra year to complete your training. Okay, so technically you could take 2 years. You could take 26 months to complete your training if you need to, because it's really important that you complete your training. And just because the year is over doesn't mean you missed your chance. You could always roll into the next year, but it's important that you finish it by the end of the second year because we want to keep you sharp, right? Like I've had people gap for too long in between trainings and then they kind of just have to start over again if they weren't practicing and if they weren't consistent. So you basically have about 2 years to finish your training if you need that. If you don't have experience in movement or anything like that, I have for you basic anatomy training, introduction to the energy centers of the body. If you're not familiar with that, with the chakra system, you'll learn, again, the Wild Soul Movement methodology, erotic body methodology. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to convince my mentor, Rie, to come help out with the training a little bit. She is amazing. I will guide you around things like holding space, creating containers, ethical facilitation and communication, as well as, and this is so important, connecting to your own ancestors and your own divine support squad. So in this training, you can also bring your own medicine, the medicine from your ancestors and the medicines from your soul into the work that we are doing. Because again, I highly, highly encourage you to make this work your own. Everything we do is trauma-informed, social justice informed, anti-racism informed, DEI informed, and all of that. We will have guest teachers on all of those things as well. And you will get signature class formats for Wild Soul Movement and erotic body specifically if you want to be teaching classes. I will also teach you how to create your own workshops, programs, and retreats if that's something that you want to do. And there will also be a number, probably 6 to 8, guest mentors who are values-aligned business mentors. So basically people who do either business coaching and development or leadership coaching and development, or some form of healing or embodiment work themselves. As you know, if you listen to the podcast, I have an array of brilliant, gifted, and mystical friends, colleagues, and acquaintances who work in all of those realms. So I will bring you some of the best folks I know to help with that. The way the training is structured, I am over the moon about this because, again, I have been tweaking and honing the structure of this training since 2016, so going on 5 years now. And I've learned a lot. I've realized what doesn't work, what works really well, what we need more of, what we need less of, how much availability I need to have for it to be a really effective training for you, and to be able to legitimately call people specialists by the time the training is over. So there will be 3 immersions during the training and then a graduation retreat at the end. All of that will be available virtually for people who can't travel for whatever reason. Like at the point that I'm recording this video, it is September of 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic is not necessarily over. Some people are traveling, some people are not. Like, I don't want anyone ever to feel like they have to do anything they don't feel safe or comfortable doing. Obviously, my preference would be to gather in person and in real life. But I know that that's not going to be accessible for everyone, for a number of reasons that we don't need to get into, and there's no judgment for any of them. So if you can come live, come live. If you can't, don't. Everything will be available for you digitally. But there will be like deadlines. If you can't come live and you can't attend the live sessions when we're streaming it digitally, you will have to complete those sessions by a certain time to make sure that you're in sync with us in the training. And I will be checking in on that. All of the live events will happen here in Miami, where I live now. And all of the content in our community forum, as I mentioned earlier, will be stored in Mighty Networks. By the time this training is over, you will have done a 5-month personal intensive with me, learning all of the tools and practices by doing them and working them for your own embodied healing and self-liberation. And as well, you'll get the benefit of being in a group. So you'll also get to see how the tools and practices work for people other than you, right? People from all kinds of backgrounds, identities, statuses, age groups, and stages of growth, healing, and evolution, which is also something, one of the ways in which our groups are always diverse is we'll have people who are beginners, we'll have people who are more advanced on like their spiritual or their growth journeys. And it doesn't matter where you are. The training will meet you where you are, take you where you want to go, and again, provide you with the skills, the practice, the tools, everything that you need to be an embodiment specialist. For the first 6 weeks of the training, which will begin on February 2nd, 2022, there's an introduction to embodied healing. So our first immersion is going to explore my embodied healing framework and embodied self-love frameworks to show you how to use them both together to begin or deepen your own self-love journey. And the reason why we start out this training with self-love work is because I can promise you, so much of the work of being an embodiment specialist is intuitive. It's intuitive, and it's using your sensitivities, your psychic gifts, your empathy, for those of you that identify as empaths or highly sensitives. It's using all of that to work with clients. And one of the integral pieces to trusting yourself as a specialist, as a healer, a guide, a coach, whatever, again, you're going to call yourself, or however you see yourself, is you need to be able to trust yourself. And a big part of self-love is self-trust. So we're going to start out on the self-love front. And the self-love framework, you will learn that through my embodied self-love mini course. And so that framework, there's 5 parts to it: self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and self-trust, and self-respect. And then there's also bonus modules in there on boundaries, because boundaries is an expression of all of that. And then on how self-love is the bridge into a more soul-centered and soulful life. Because embodiment work, from my perspective and in my school of thought, training, and development, is the whole purpose of getting embodied is to embody our soul, is to illuminate and express as much of the essence of our soul as possible in our one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver calls it. Although those of you who believe in incarnation, it's not just our one wild and precious life. It's in this wild and precious life, which is informed by God only knows how many other wild and precious lives, okay? Which, by the way, that brings me to something that I want to be super clear about in the training as well. You do not need to hold any specific like spiritual belief system, religion, or ideology, or anything like that. The only thing that we have no tolerance and no space for in any of my groups is dehumanization of any kind. You know, we are all always dismantling our own internalized everything, all forms of oppression, all forms of dehumanization, judgment, all this stuff. So if anyone, which there's why there's an application process, right? If anyone is going to be willfully ignorant, if anyone's going to be showing up in the training, you know, I don't know how to say it other than like being an oppressive asshole, that's not going to be welcome in the space. The likelihood that anyone would be able to make it through the application process, if they're that kind of person, is like pretty much impossible. But just in case somebody did, I would have absolutely no issue booting them from the training with a quickness upon realization of that fun fact, okay? Okay, so that's the first 6 weeks of the training. And around March 22nd, we're going to move into the self-liberation framework using what I'm going to call from now on the Embodiment Specialist Cave of Wonders. This is what we call it in the Embodied Living Center. So this is our core practices: wild soul movement, erotic body movement, healing meditations and rituals, energy hygiene practices, prayers, mantras, and then reflection and contemplation practices, such as journaling, for example. The self-liberation framework is surrender, release, trust, receptivity, wild dreaming, desire, love, and truth. And you will see how those things aid in your own personal healing journey so that you can use them as a specialist after your training in your own work. Because I've always believed and will always believe that leading by example is the best practice. Using my own tools and practices to walk through my own healing fires, rites and passages, initiations, challenges, and traumas in life is what makes it really easy to be confident in teaching and using them with clients and students, because I know firsthand how well they work, in addition to having witnessed a wide range of results for thousands of clients with these methods since 2013. Okay, so that next chunk of time in the training, so your first 6 weeks, we do embodied healing and embodied self-love frameworks and the embodied self-love work. And then the following 4 months of training are you doing your own healing work and self-liberation work using the self-liberation framework and our embodied healing cave of wonders. Okay? And I'm going to guide you in all of that. Then in July, I was going to say June, in July, right around Mary Magdalene Feast Day, which is a day that I celebrate every single year. It's my second favorite day of the year, my first being my birthday. You will already have done roughly 5 months of personal intensive work with me. And now we're going to move into the phase of training that emphasizes your own becoming of a teacher, a facilitator, a practical mystic, if you want to be a practical mystic. So this is when our second immersion will take place. This will be a 3 or a 4 day immersion, basically to teach you the nuts and bolts of the movement methodologies, which you'll already be familiar with, right? Because you would have been practicing them for the last 4 months. And I'll also teach you how to create your own healing meditations and provide your introduction to energy work during that immersion in July. Then beginning in October, the next phase of training, each month, once we do like the teacher and facilitator part of training, we're going to start doing monthly practice sessions. It's super important that you be practicing and showing up for practice sessions. And so while we're still practicing and deepening your teaching and facilitation skills, I'm also going to bring in 2 guest mentors a month for October, November, and January. We'll skip December to give you space to integrate and enjoy the holiday season. Again, and some of these mentors will give you business strategy, advice, and guidance. Some of you will share some of their own like personal, beliefs and how they function and how they run their practices and the types of things that they do with their clients and how they've built their practices as well. And then our graduation retreat will take place at the end of January 2023. So throughout the training, there are going to be 3 group calls a month at different times each week so that we can get people from various time zones to at least be able to attend one live call a month. So you do not need to attend every single call every single week. You're more than welcome to come each week if you want to, but you are required to make it to at least one call a month. You'll also have a monthly one-on-one call with me. So like I said, a big part of this training is you doing your own healing work, right? Because healers, facilitators, teachers, guides, everyone always has more healing to do, but we have a responsibility to be healed to an extent that we can responsibly hold place for other people where our wounds and our trauma do not come into our teaching and facilitation. So that's one reason why doing your own work is a big part of becoming an embodiment specialist and why I will help you and guide you through that. So during our 5-month immersion with the frameworks, embodied healing, embodied self-love, and self-liberation, our one-on-one calls will be healing sessions for you. So you'll get a one-on-one healing session with me every month. And then once we move into your training of teaching and facilitating your one-on-ones, we can still do healing sessions, but they're also primarily going to be check-ins around how your teaching and facilitation skills are coming along. And then once you complete the July immersion, you will be able to start practice teaching, not just for your peers in the training, but for your own people in your own community, your own family, friends, coworkers, whomever. And you will be required to teach 10 practice classes, 5 wild soul movement, 5 erotic body, in order to complete the training. And then 2 of them, so 1 of each, a wild soul movement and an erotic body class, you will have to collect feedback from your attendees that will be submitted directly to me, and I will review it with you during a one-on-one session. Your final practice teaching, so like your practicum that you'll basically have to be pass to see if you can become a specialist that I sign off on, or if you need more training, will take place at our graduation retreat in January of 2023. So for the most part, that is just about everything you need to know about the training. And there is a link on this page as well to apply. The application is a thorough application. Again, this is important. This is not going to be a huge training group, right? There's not going to be like 50, 80, 90, 100, 150 people or more in this training. I mean, max, it might be 25 to 30 people because, excuse me, I need to be able to meet with you all one-on-one every month. And that's about my max capacity. So I'm really, the right people always make it into the room. Whoever ends up in this group for 2022, it's going to be the perfect group of people. Some of you will become very close. Some of you will probably meet lifelong friends in training. You'll be able to have accountability partners if you need to. Like, I love this. I love this shit so much. And I am very good at it. So I promise you will be in good hands. And we'll also have some experience. Some of our teachers who've already been certified, they'll be in the group as well. They'll be sharing their experiences and stuff like that. So it's just going to be a deep and thorough and amazing training. So if that speaks to you, you can go ahead and apply below. Investment and all that information, that is below the video as well. And we do have a handful of partial scholarships. And then we also have like 6 to 8 work exchange opportunities for people who can't swing the full investment. But even with the full investment, I have set it up on extended payment plans for the most part. We have 14, 18, and 24-month payment plans because the investment for the training is a substantial investment because of how deep and thorough and intensive it is, right? Like if you were going to get a master's degree, you wouldn't expect it to be like on the cheap. So, and you are becoming a specialist in something, so it's an immersive and an intensive training. It will also require work from you, like at least 5 to 10 hours a week. So you're also going to want to make sure that you have time. But these are things that I ask you in the application. And these are also things that I'm happy to help you with in terms of managing your time, finding the time to show up, figuring out how you're going to, squeeze it into your life and plan around it and all that. Happy to help you with that stuff. I've been doing that stuff in my own life for many years, as well as helping other people with that. So check out the application. That's thorough. It's probably going to take you like 30 to 45 minutes to fill out an application because again, just like the training is immersive and intensive and like a real deal training, just like if you ever applied to like college or a master's program or anything like that, or, you know, for some other kind of training or a grant or something, you really got to take your time and put yourself into the application. So we have that as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's about 35 minutes to listen to me, to check this out, to see what's on the page. And if you take the time to apply, I cannot wait to review your applications. I will be reviewing them personally. You and I will be scheduling a call personally, and then we'll figure out if the training is right for you and what makes sense. Okay? Thank you so much. We'll see you later.